You don't have enough aircraft, you don't have enough ships.
Ratcheting up the rhetoric.
So we're already at war with China?
Ask the Chinese, they tell you.
Is it just Beijing bluff?
We're going to lose. Our soldiers would be brave, and our weapons would be lethal.
For real this time.
Australia is very much on the menu.
Our Chief of Navy has his say.
There are 1,000 ways to start a conflict. There's only 2 ways that it ends.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
In the increasingly less than delicate dance for dominance in our region, there's no denying China boasts superior force when compared with our military. It's an advantage they love to show off, like they did earlier this year when Chinese warships provocatively sailed a lap of Australia. But while Beijing's sticks are impressive, their carrots are also proving to be effective weapons, especially when it comes to influencing our near neighbours. Chinese money has been buying plenty of friendship in the South Pacific. So what's the next step Australia should be taking as China moves closer and closer?
We are joined today by Sean Fu, a market analyst and China expert, to discuss the recent developments in the US-China economic war. So welcome back to the program.
Very great to be here, Glenn, as always.
Well, we see that the US pressures both allies and opponents, but while the Europeans are hoping that unwavering obedience and subordination will be rewarded by Washington, it hasn't yet. But we then see that China, and I guess now you can put India in that category as well, have chosen to push back instead. And I was wondering how we see this play out, especially in the chip market, because this seems to be a very important area as there is a, let's call it a competition for technological leadership in the chip sector. So NVIDIA, this leading American chip maker and AI computing company, they obviously have been banning sales. Well, they've been forced to ban sales of advanced computer chips. But now we see that it's flipping a bit. That China might itself start to close off its markets to the American chip makers. Now, I'm not sure if it's because they're not reliable partners or just in the tech competition to strip them of this market share. What is actually happening here? Because this is something that you're paying close attention to.
Sure. I think China's beginning to realize the big advantage they truly hold when it comes to this economic war, when it comes to the trade war, when it comes to all the tariffs. And it's not going to be just a struggle for this next 3 to 4 years. It's going to be a struggle for the next 20 to 30 years. So there's a reason why NVIDIA at the start petitioned so hard to the Trump administration and before that the Biden administration to try to sell chips to China. Because NVIDIA kind of knows what the future of the world is going to be. It comes to tangible goods, it comes to tangible manufacturing. And China's semiconductor market is way more than the 50 billion that Jensen Huang just told the world about it, right? That's just a figure. But if we extrapolate it to the future, we can see that China, a lot of their factories are entering, the Internet of Technology, IoT, robotics, and all this requires a lot of hardware, a lot of AI chips, a lot of data centers, a lot of AI accelerators. So it kind of makes sense for NVIDIA to try their best to sell into it. And it's quite amazing that the Trump administration doesn't even understand the consequence of it. And that's why he started to tax NVIDIA 15% of the top line revenue of Chinese money coming in, buying all these chips. Now, China is smart in a way that they realize this is the big advantage they hold. Apart from rare earths, they have this big, gigantic consumer market where the chips will be used very effectively, very efficiently. So the Chinese market, especially when the chips, the demand is quite self-sustaining for their own local companies like Huawei, Capricorn, their own local chip manufacturers. However, if they allow NVIDIA to penetrate into the markets quite easily, they do stand the risk that a lot of their local companies, in their bid to outcompete each other, whether that be Tencent, whether that be Alibaba, they might actually run towards Western chips
The body scanner.
To the program, we are joined today by Colonel Douglas McGregor, decorated combat veteran and former senior advisor to the U.S. Secretary of Defense. And I have been looking forward to speaking with you, as you will soon speak at this national conversation event, which I will leave the information about in the description. But I thought it was interesting to address both the domestic and international issues in a world which is changing. And as the world is changing so fast, it's not a good time to have politics on autopilot, as there is a need to reflect on how the world is changing and how the US should adjust to this, because some, I think, countries will thrive, others will fall, and it depends on the ability to adjust to the world as it is. But yeah, to address this topic, I thought a good place to start would be Trump telling the Europeans now that they have to, if they want United States to put more sanctions on Russia, then they have to go full in. That is, put secondary sanctions on anyone trading with Russia, buying their energy, which means going after China, India. This is, I've heard different interpretations and perspectives on what the strategy is here. Is this a foolish, delusional approach, or is this some 4D chess we're not understanding?
No, I think that's a great question, because whenever people in the United States listen to something that Donald Trump says that frankly doesn't pass the smell test for common sense, the immediate fallback position is, oh, well, this must be a clever way to extricate the United States from something or put the United States in the driver's seat and so forth. I prefer to listen to the man and go along with what you see as opposed to what you think he may mean. This message that he said to the Europeans struck me as a sort of a passive-aggressive approach to dealing with international relations that I think is both unhelpful and dangerous. And he starts off by saying, I've decided to, quote-unquote, do sanctions on Russia. It sounded like a valley girl from Central California explaining what she plans to do for the day, and do lunch, do dinner, whatever else. Then he goes on to tell us that, well, I'm going to impose sanctions, but everything depends on you in Europe. And I expect that you will follow my lead. Well, he forgets something. You know, George Washington, when he was president of the United States, responded to a question about the French and what they would do in the future and what we might do in the future. And he said, keep something in mind. No nation or no nation state can be expected to move beyond the limits of its own interests. And that was his answer to the question, what will the French do? What will the British do? What will anybody do? And he did not expect anyone to move beyond the limits of their interests in their support of us. In other words, whatever the policy is, it has limitations. And I think as the Europeans read through his message, they're going to come to the conclusion that he wants them to fully commit to national or international suicide by destroying their relations with virtually everybody except the United States and between themselves. And this is not a reasonable solution in today's world. We all live on the same planet. It is in everyone's interest at some point to do business.
EU just passed the 19th sanctions package. It just ends all purchases of LNG from Russia. Russian LNG was, significantly cheaper than American LNG. So it's going to raise the price of energy further for Europeans. It's not something they need. It sanctions or, prohibits all transactions with Russian energy traders. It kind of suggests that maybe it's going to be difficult, for example, Hungary and Slovakia, who have been continuing to get oil and gas from Russia, to continue to do that, because I imagine they're doing it through those energy traders. Well, we'll see. And I heard that, I guess maybe part of the deal was that the EU was going to give Hungary compensation. Well, now if this is true, and if Hungary and Slovakia get cut off, again, I'm not sure that this is going to happen, but that is going to further increase energy prices in Europe, because that was actually just the fact that Hungary was getting that kind of eased some of the pressure on the energy markets in Europe in general. But if that's cut off, then yeah, they're just engaged in some sort of collective suicide. It's just so crazy. They're so proud of the fact that they're depriving themselves of cheap energy, which is just beyond absurd. You just got to keep on, kind of pinching yourself and saying, am I dreaming this? Yeah, no, it's really happening. It's exactly what Europe doesn't need. And then, there's just the further sanctions, what they're going to sanction. Any bank that is plugged into the Russian equivalent of the SWIFT system, whereby funds are transferred between banks, those banks will be sanctioned. There'll be more sanctions on the so-called shadow fleet. It all sounds kind of scary, but a shadow fleet is just one that doesn't have insurance provided by the
Lloyd's.
like Lloyd's of London, right? Western insurers. That's all it is, So they passed this, and but maybe the most important thing I almost forgot is that they actually announced that they're going to seize those hundreds and billions of dollars in Russian assets, that have been frozen, and use them to pay Ukraine.
On September 3rd, China held a stunning military parade in Beijing that captivated the world. The neatly organized military formations and advanced cutting-edge weaponry undoubtedly attracted global attention. For me, the central scene left a deep impression. But what you might not know is that just one day before the parade, China, Russia, and Mongolia quietly signed a 30-year natural gas cooperation agreement. This deal, worth over $900 billion, is a super order that could impact the future global energy landscape. Interestingly, almost at the same time, Europe is doing everything it can to break free from its reliance on Russian natural gas, even planning to completely phase out imports in the next few years. China's involvement could potentially replace Russia's gas exports to Europe on a nearly equivalent scale. In today's video, we'll talk about why it took nearly a decade for the three countries to negotiate a pipeline project and what kind of real-world impact this project will have on Europe. If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content.
Of all the videos that you've seen here, show you little clips from one video to another. They have one thing in common, this fear that America is on the way to destruction. Another part of the video I show you is the things that the people that's causing the fear. The farmers are making videos about them losing their farms and produce that they can't sell to China. They used to be getting rich off selling to China. And China cut them off, and now they're complaining. But they know what they were doing. Now, to make the money that they were making off to China, they're going to have to raise prices on Americans. And wherever America ships stuff, the price is going to go up, because the markets in those places have been wiped out by cheap products. My last video I told you you're going to have to feed yourself. Buy land. You might be going to Africa to relax, but you can also do something that will feed yourself, feed other people around you, and still be able to relax. People in America who can't leave will suffer. You who can have an opportunity to build a foundation for you and your family and your extended, the next generation and the generation after that. What you do today normally will affect 3 generations, 2 to 3 generations. So you will be the parent. Your children will have children and their children. So you be a great grandparent. Most of us are great grandparents. Those 3 generations after us. And if we leave a solid foundation, wherever you go in Africa, you can't fail. And that is going to pull Africa up. Watch some of the videos, but don't watch all of them. Just get a look of feel of what's going on, because don't let the stress of what you see cause you to have issues. Because looking at this thing and not seeing it, most people can't see this as just information. They see it as the world falling apart around them, and they start worrying about what's going to happen to themselves and their families and all that. You cannot save somebody who don't want to be saved. Your adult children will do what they want to do. It's only when the fire around them is burning so hot that they're looking for a door that they might call you and says, hey, how can we come and live with you? And if you have built that house, they can come and live with you. If they can't get out, you can't worry about them. Otherwise you will die. And they're still going to be suffering. So watching all of these videos, you got to be careful that you don't get stressed out. Just remember, this video is like when you come out your house, you walk out the door and see this dark clouds in the sky. You still have to go out and go on with your life. So what do? You get an umbrella. You say, well, it's raining today, but I gotta go do what I gotta do. Umbrella, where are you? You don't worry about it. You don't sit down and stress out about it. You say, oh my God, the world is falling apart. Nope. You go on. Don't let these videos, they are just information. Information that you can use. That's why I do this. Wherever you are, have a great day. Like you see me walking in the morning, looking at the trees and the clouds and the sky. That's my de-stressing. I'm living in the midst of it. Right now I'm in the US and I'm seeing it. Wherever I go, it's in my face. Whoever I talk to, part of the conversation is like this. Peace.